Hi, I'm Mudukwa Daramola, and this is What is Your Story by Noisy Podcast. You are listening to Personal Stories, a segment where we share powerful voices and experiences. What is Your Story is a cultural project dedicated to telling and publishing African stories. Our goal is to create a space where anyone can come, share their truth, and together we preserve the authentic African narrative in all its form and voices. We are always looking for new and impactful stories, so if you have one, we would love to hear from you. Just click the sign up link in our box below.
Hi, my name is Funmto and this is my story. So I was born and raised in Lagos, Nigeria. I am the fourth child of 4 children. So I'm the last born. I have 3 older siblings. I grew up in what I would call a loving household. My siblings and we had like freedom, right? So I would say my parents were liberal but conservative. What I mean by that is, like, for example, we used to get like a lot of hampers, right? And in those hampers would be things like Baileys and, things like that. But I didn't really have any temptation to like indulge in things that I wasn't supposed to, quote unquote. And my parents would not necessarily like hide things away from us, if that makes sense. So that's kind of what I mean by liberal. But then conservative in that they're still Nigerian parents. So there were still things that, were no-nos. But, looking back, there was definitely a level of trust that they had in us, the children. So yeah, like I said, I'm the last born. I have 3 older siblings. I have 2 sisters and a brother. I really love my siblings. I love the relationship that I have with them, especially now as an adult. In different parts of life, we've all kind of lived in different parts, different cities in the world. In the last 3 years, we've all lived in Lagos, and it's just been nice to do life with them around me. So yeah, that's a bit of my background. I'm a therapist. I'm a clinical mental health therapist, and I'm the founder of EBIO Therapy and Wellness. My story to becoming a therapist, someone recently asked me like, oh, what happened? Why did you decide to become a therapist? Like, did something bad happen? Like, was it trauma? And I said, no, it wasn't anything like that. But how the story began was in SS2 at the time, my school required us to do like a 1-week internship. So it was over Easter break, and the goal of it was just to, get us exposure. And my dad is a broadcaster, and so I had that exposure to like journalism and all that good stuff. So I worked at Top Radio with Tosin Bucknor, we should rest in peace. And that was an amazing experience. It was really great. I really enjoyed, like being on air, seeing the behind the scenes and all that good stuff. When I was younger, people would often tell me that, you look like your dad, so you should study journalism. And I'm like, is it by looks that you determine what you should study? But anyway, so after the internship, I just, thought to myself, I don't think I can do this long term. Like, it felt like something that would be an add-on to what I wanted to do. I didn't know what it was, but I just knew that it wasn't something that I felt like I could do long term. So I started to think about things that I enjoyed doing, things that came naturally to me. And that's when I started to realize that, I enjoy talking to people. I like listening to people. I like helping them solve their problems. Amongst my friend group, I was kind of like, the advice giver and listening ear. And that's when I decided to study psychology. And like I said earlier, I said my parents are liberal but conservative. This is where their liberalism comes in, because it's like, why are you letting your child study psychology? There was no pushback from my parents when I said I wanted to study psychology. They just wanted me to, work hard, succeed at what I do. And that was it. So they let me study psychology. So I went to school in the US. I went to school in Texas, to be specific. And that was a very good experience. I went to a small liberal arts college. There were not a lot of Black people, let alone Nigerians. And when I say small, I mean like the student population and staff, professors, everything. Total population was less than, at the time, it was less than 1,500. So it was less than 1,500. So it was a small school. But I went there. I enjoyed my experience. I really, I developed friends, or made friends rather. And my friends were from like all over. I have a friend from like Ghana, Kenya, Senegal, Jamaica. So yeah, while I was getting my bachelor's, because my school was a liberal arts college, that basically meant that you had to have a major and a minor. So you couldn't just, in my case, I couldn't just study psychology. I had to study psychology and something else. So my bachelor's is actually in psychology and communication. And yeah, a lot of people don't know that, but I'm like, yeah, I have a comms degree. And with psychology, with my school, before you could declare it as your major, you had to pass certain prerequisite courses, and one of which was research design and statistics. So it involved math. And I didn't say this, but in secondary school, I used to fail math. Like, I used to fail it a lot, constantly getting F. I remember one time I got a C in my midterm, and my teacher, Mrs. Oyedotu, God bless her, so she was so happy for me. She was so excited. I remember she called my mom. I got 23 out of 30. That's a core memory. But anyway, so yeah, math wasn't my thing. So fast forward to university, I'm doing research design and statistics, and I have a midterm where I got a D. And this was an issue because if I failed that class, I wouldn't have been able to declare psychology as my major. So I remember I had like a mini meltdown. I called my friend Detty. I was like, oh my God, like, what am I supposed to do? Like, if I don't pass this class, like, I can't study psychology. If I can't study psychology, what am I supposed to do? But I mean, we're here now, so I passed the class. I don't know what I did. I do know what I did. I met with the professor. Thankfully, he was very like patient and understanding. So I met with him, and just like put a bit more effort into studying. And now, like looking back, I wonder if like some of those like limiting beliefs that I had about like, failing math, I wonder if some of that got in the way, and I think it may have. But anyway, that's that. I passed the class. I declared psychology as my major. While I was studying psychology, that's where I really started to see the treatment gap that existed in the US and Nigeria specifically. And even in the US, like even the gap that existed with certain populations, so with Black people, right? And that's when I decided that, okay, you know what, I want to do something about this. I want to further my degree and, become a therapist. And so the goal was to become a therapist that just, bridges the treatment gap that exists between home and abroad. And I thought that would be something that would happen like years later into my career. Like, after getting a PhD, or like I spent like 10 to 15 years outside of the country and I just come back to give back to my country. I thought that's what would happen, but that was not the case. So finished university, went straight into my master's. So I graduated university in May, and then I started my master's by August. So went straight into my master's, and that was also a wonderful experience. And, while I was there, I would say things like, I see myself doing more than just like therapy, doing more than just like the one-on-one, like sitting across from a client's type of therapy. I would say things like, okay, like in hindsight now, I know what I was saying was like just doing more beyond individual sessions. So now that, I have more like speaking engagements, or, I'm creating content, it's no surprise that I'm doing the more that I, was sensing back then. So got my master's. It was a great experience. That's where I really decided to like niche in on trauma focused care, because while I was getting my master's and also at some point in my bachelor's, I worked with at-risk youth. So I was working with youth who were in CPS custody, so Child Protective Services. So either they had been removed from their homes because there was abuse there. I also worked with youth who were in like partial hospitalization settings. So essentially, the program was the step between going to the psychiatry hospital, right? So I was working with teens who had either attempted to take their life or, they were contemplating it. So as you can imagine, a lot of heavy stuff, right? And that's when I really decided that, okay, I want to work with trauma, because oftentimes it's a lot of like, oh, why are you like this? Like, stop doing this, like just change your behavior. But trauma looks into like what happened to you. What happened to you that you started to act like this, right? Because the way we often behave is usually an adaptation to like the life experiences that we've had. So for example, if somebody twists their ankle and they don't get the care or rehab that they deserve, they may start walking funny. And if they don't take the time to like investigate or take care of that injury, the way they walk may then stay with them for life, right? And it's just like, oh, I'm just this way, I just walk this way. And it's like, no, you adapted to this after the injury because you didn't take care of it. So a lot of behaviors that we see in people is like adaptations, right? Because of like life experiences that have happened to them. So yeah, that's when I decided that I'm going to hone in on, trauma-focused care.
Hi there. Just a quick reminder that Noisy Streets is a startup on a mission to publish and promote authentic African stories. If you have a story to tell, we'd love for you to join us. Simply click the link in our description box to sign up. And don't forget to stay with us on social media, on Instagram at noisy.streets and at whatisyourstory_podcast, and on Twitter at WIYS_podcast. Follow along to stay up to date with all of our activities and upcoming episodes.
After my master's, I worked for a bit, still in Texas, still working with the same population at risk youth. And then I came back to Lagos. And a lot of people ask me, like, why did you come back to Lagos? Like, why would you do that? Honestly, it wasn't a choice. Life moves that way. But in hindsight, I am thankful to God that life moved in that direction. Because like I've been in Lagos for 4 years now. I came back in 2021. We're in 2025. So 4 years now. And honestly, like I've grown so much. And, like I was saying earlier, beyond even just professionally, being able to do life with my siblings and being around my siblings and family and just being able to like experience life with them is such a gift that I'm really thankful for. So yeah, I came back March of 2021 to be specific. I started IBIO in October of 2021. And I remember before that, my sister had suggested that I should start my own practice. And I was like, nah, like I'm not going to be here for long. Like I came in March. In my head, I was like, I'll be out of here by June. So, I'm not going to be here for long. But I ended up being here for long. And so I accepted that, maybe I should start my own practice. So I just did a lot of like behind the scenes work. And when people often ask me why I chose the name IBIO. IBIO means place of joy in Yoruba. And when I was thinking of names, I wanted something that would capture how I wanted people to feel, which was safe, which was joy, which was at peace, and just, existing in a non-judgmental environment. And I couldn't think of an English word that captured all of that. So I knew that I wanted to incorporate joy, which is ayo in Yoruba. So I started playing around with it. And then my brother, shout out to my brother, then suggested, oh, why don't you just, make it IBIO? And I was like, ding, 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 we have a winner. So that's how the name came to be. And honestly, I can't think of any other description for the business. Like I can't imagine it being anything else. But anyway, I started IBIO and I didn't have any clients. I just created like a flyer on Canva, sent it to my friends and family. I posted it on LinkedIn, just said that I was accepting new clients. And my first client was actually a referral from my brother. And then more people started coming in through LinkedIn and, just like passing around the flyer within my network and their own networks. And yeah, Now, 4 years later, we've grown to a team of 3 other therapists, as well as admin and support team. So we're just under 10, or no, we're 10 right now, which is honestly so mind-blowing. As I'm recounting this, and like just telling this story, it's honestly very, very mind-blowing to believe. The growth has been phenomenal. It's been stretching. It's been challenging. It's caused me to function in different capacities, especially in this phase of life currently. I'm really having to sit in my Madam CEO bag and just understand, the dynamics of leading people, managing people, which is it's a growing journey for me. I know how to be a therapist any day, anytime. It's what I've been trained to do. It's what I've done for the past 6+ years. But now that this phase of life requires more than just being a therapist, it's stretching, but I'm here for it. And I'm honestly so proud of our growth and so thankful for our growth. Like I said, we have 3 other therapists on the team. So we support clients that are experiencing things like depression, anxiety, life transitions, trauma, coping with neurodevelopmental concerns. We also do couples therapy. And people often think couples therapy is just for married people. It's not. A couple means 2. So whatever the pairing is, you can come, whether it's you and your friend, whether it's you and your boyfriend, whether it's you and your fiance, you can come and, get couples therapy. Yeah. So it's been a great journey. Some of the things that we're looking forward to ahead is we're looking to just develop programs that can be accessible to our community at large and just, really bridge that gap between accessibility to quality mental health care. Because that was the reason why I started IBIO. I wanted people to see that, there are quality therapists that exist in Nigeria. Because when I moved back, before I moved back, I noticed that a lot of people would be referring therapists outside of the country. So either in the UK, South Africa, those 2 are very common. So I really wanted people to see that quality mental health care does exist in Nigeria and just rebrand therapy as a whole, because there's been a lot of horror stories and things just going wrong. So just wanted to show people that that's not always the case. There are good ethical therapists out here. So that's one of the reasons why I started IBIO. So yeah, back to what we're looking forward to. Yeah, looking forward to just developing programs to help bridge, accessibility to mental health care, and also
training, being a part of the training of future psychologists. We had something called Journey to Psych, which was just an open forum for people to learn about what you can do with a psychology career, because I would often get inquiries like that, oh, I want to study psychology, what can I do? Or I've studied psychology, what can I do? And I understand that, because I remember when I was at university and I came back home for a summer, somebody was like, you're studying psychology, you're just going to work in HR. And I'm there's more to studying psychology than that. So yeah, that's pretty much our journey with IBIO. It's been a phenomenal journey. Like I said, I didn't want to move back to Lagos when I did. I thought I would move back 10, 15 years later, but clearly God had other plans, and I don't regret. I don't regret the move back, and I'm thankful that I can even say that, right? Because that's not everybody's case. It's been great to just grow in Lagos. Great doesn't mean it hasn't been challenging. It's been challenging, but it's been great to, grow in Lagos and, even have to develop community, because that was something that I struggled with when I first moved back. And yeah, that's me. That's who I am. This is Funmto. I hope you've enjoyed listening to my story and just getting to know me more than most people do, but it's okay. We're embracing vulnerability. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed listening to my story.
That is for today's episode of What Is Your Story? Thank you so much for listening and for being a part of this community of storytellers. I'll be back next week with another story, and until then, remember to keep telling your truth.